Hey there, how's it going everyone? In the last video, we went ahead and got our recipes from the API. Now in this video, we're going to go ahead and style these recipes up. We are going to style these recipes that we fetched using the card component that comes with React Bootstrap. So I'm going to go to our code, and within our recipe component, I'm going to import the card component from React Bootstrap. So I'm going to say import card from React Bootstrap. And after importing card, we are simply going to change this to our card component. So what I'm going to do is come right in here and then call this a card component. Then I also close this. So within our card component, we have a card header as well as a card body. Now all the content for our card lies in our card body. So what I'm going to do in this case is to change the h3. Actually, before I change it, I'm going to wrap all this within our card body. It's going to come and say card, going to be body. I'll just remove this closing tag and put it just right below the closing card tag. And this is going to be wrapped within our card. Now I can as well change this to card.title, so I can say card title. Then also change this to card.title as well. So I'll say card title. We change this. So I'm going to go ahead and also change this to card. This is going to be card.title. Then I'll change this to so let's try to see how this will look. So when you go back here, we see that our recipes are now organized. They are within our card components. You can go ahead and also add some stylings. For example, styles that are going to help these card components be separate from each other. So I can go, and what I can do is to come right here and then say card. I can give this a class name. So I'll come here and say class name is going to be equal to. So let me say recipe. When I give this a class of recipe, all I can do is to come within our main.css, and then I'll just simply say recipe. So I basically give this margin top, let's say 20 pixels. And I save this and head over to our client. You see that now our cards are separate from each other by 20 pixels. Now after styling our recipes, the next thing I'm going to do is to create these recipes. So I'm going to head over to create recipe page, which is found within create recipe.js. And within this page, I'm going to create a form that's going to submit data to our backend API. So I'm going to do that using React Bootstrap form component. So I'm going to import it from React Bootstrap. So I'm going to come here and say import. So in this case, I'm going to import form from React Bootstrap. So I'm going to go ahead and import it. I'm also going to import the button. So I'm going to be using the button component as well for submitting our data to our backend API. So I'll come right in here and create a form element, since this is going to be a form. So I'll go ahead and create a form group. So this is going to be a form group. So this form group is going to have a label. So I'm going to say form label. So this label is going to have a title. So in this case, we're going to out our title as well as form control. So the form control is going to be our input with a class of form control. Let's come and say this is going to be control. I'm going to close this. So for now, I may just give the type. So I'm going to specify the type as type is going to be for true. Let's say it's going to be a text input. So we're going to go ahead and do the same for our form. We're going to also go ahead and create a form group. So this form group is going to be for our description. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and say form dot. This is going to be label. So we're creating a label. So in this label is going to be for our description, because our recipes have a title and a description. If you didn't check out the previous videos, please go ahead and check it out. So when I give a description, I'm going to create a text area. So to create a text area, I create a form control. This is going to be a form control. And in this form control, I'll specify that I need it as a text area. So this is going to be a text area. And then I also give it the number of rows you want for this text area. So in this case, it's going to be 5. So I'll simply give it 5 rows and then I'll close it. So when I save this and head over to our client, so I'm going to go to our client, and when I go to our create recipes component, we see that our form has been created. However, we see that there's no margin and padding from our margins. So to do that, I'm going to go back to our code and write in here. I'm going to change this to container so as to give some margin and padding to our page. I'll do this and say container, save. Now when I hit save, we see that everything has been brought to the center. So I'm going to go ahead and also change this. So I'll come right in here. I'm going to change this to create a recipe. So this is going to be a recipe. So change it to create a recipe. Now after changing this, I'll also come in SF. We see that now our form is a bit organized. So I'm going to add a button to submit our data. So I'll come right in here and create another form group. So say form group is going to be the. Now within our form group, I'll create a button component and then I'll give it a variant. So the variant is going to specify which class this button is going to have. So it's going to have a variant of primary to make it of color blue. And then I'm going to simply come and add some text. So this text is going to be save. When I come here, our button component has been created. So I'm going to go ahead and add some line break here to make it a bit distant from our text area. So after doing this, I'm going to come and as well create the different validations as well as the logic that's going to handle this form. So I'm going to use React hook form just like I used for the previous videos. I'm going to come and import the use form hook from React hook form. I'm going to say import. This is going to be use. So this is going to be our use form hook. I'm going to come and say what use form from. So this is going to be React form. So after importing the React hook form, I'm going to import the different functions that are going to help us to handle this form. So I'm going to come right below, right above the return statement, and I'll come and say const. So I'll access quite a lot from this use form hook. The first thing I'm going to import is a function that's going to help us to register our inputs, as well as one that's going to make us handle our submit. I'll also import reset to help us to reset our form in case we submit it, as well as our form state. So in our form state, we shall have access such as to things such as the errors that our inputs will have. We need to go ahead and register the various fields we've created. So I'll go right within our form control. And right in here, I'll come and register. So I'll use this syntax, use the spread operator, and then I say register. So within here, I'll register this as our title. And then I'll also come here and specify the various validation rules. So for example, and set required to true. And then you can also say that our max length is going to be, let's say, 25. So after doing this, I'll go ahead and do the same thing for our text area. So to do that, I'm going to come within our text area. So I'm going to register this. So I'll come register this as our description. So this is going to be our description. So I'll give it a required attribute. So our required is going to be equal to true. And then we can also give it a max length. So let's say our max length going to be, let's say our max length is 255. So after doing this, I'm going to simply close this. So let's try to see. So I'm going to come and close this with a parenthesis. And after doing that, um, so our errors are gone. So after doing this, the next thing is going to be to make use of our errors from our form state, access our errors, and then display them on the client. So since I did this in the previous videos, I'm going to just copy that logic and bring it here as well. I'm going to go to login.js, and within our login.js, I'm simply going to come to the errors part, and I'm going to copy the errors from here So I'll come right in here and copy these errors. So I'm going to copy them and come to our recipe, create recipe page. So I'm going to paste them right above the line breaks. So then I'll have to change this. So this is going to be our, in this case, I'll specify the field to be the title and the title as well. So right here, I'll say that the title, because we are validating for the max length of our title. So I'll also change this to, this is going to be a title is required. Title is required, and then right here I'll also say that the title should be of a certain length. So title should be, so in this case, since we have 255, so I can say title should be actually less than 255. So the same thing is going to happen for our title. So I'm going to come right here and paste the errors. Now with our errors, I'm going to come and change the field name. So our field name in this case is going to be for, actually this was supposed to be for our description. So I'm going to press Ctrl D, change this. This is going to be our description. This is going to be small d, lowercase d, and then this will be description. Change this description. So right here we have description. So even here we're going to have description. So these are the errors for the description. I'm going to do the errors for our name as well. So our title as well. So in this case we're going to provide the title, and also going to come right in here and say title. So I'm going to come as well as change this to title. So here we're having a title is required, and right here we're going to have our title. So I'm going to change this to title. Should be less, should be less than, let's say, 25 characters. So when I save this and head over to our front end, hoping that we don't have any errors, we need to go to our client. Now we're having our form in case we submit it. For now we are having errors, so let me add an action that's going to handle this form on submit. So I'll come, since we imported handle submit, I'll come to the button and then add an handler. So I'll come add on click. Now on click, what we want to do is to handle the function that's going to handle this button when submitted. So I'm just going to call it create recipe. So this is going to be our function that's going to create a recipe. So right now I'm going to go just where I mentioned this and create that function. So I'm just going to come and say create recipe is going to be function that takes in, actually it's going to take in the data, whatever data we input in the form, and what we shall do in this case is to console log that data. What I'll do is console log data that we input into our form. Hit save, and when I head over to our client, I submit this form, you see that now our validations are working. So let's try to input some text. So if I say title, actually let me title and then say let's say test description, whatever it is, I save. So what we need is to see if our data is being console logged. So I'm going to head over to the console, and right here we see that an object has been console logged containing our description as well as our title. So our form is working. But the next thing we're going to do is to send this data to our API. So let's go ahead and do that. If you've been following along in the previous videos, you realize that we talked about how to authenticate users with our JWT being kept in local storage. Right now, we can go and see whether our route for creating new recipes is protected. We head over to our backend. Our backend located at localhost 5000/docs. So when I go to our recipes and check, so we have this route that creates a new recipe. So when I go in here and try it out, so I'm going to try it out. And right now we see that we are missing an authorization header. So this requires us to be able to pass in this header and be able to pass in our token within our authorization header so as to access this route and be able to create a new recipe. So how are we going to do that? We're going to head over to our client and head over to our application. So within our application, I'm going to go right in here. So we're going to access our local storage where our token is being kept. So going to come right here. So I'm going to minimize this. So right now we see that within our local storage, we have our server, our development server, and our React token auth key. So we are going to access this React token auth key from our local storage and be able to pass it within our authorization header so as to log in our users. Okay, what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy this key right here. So I'm going to come right here and copy. I'm going to actually copy the entire key. So what I'll do, just come with this, then go back to our front end code. So right here, what I'm going to do is to be able to create, uh, to access our key from local storage. So local storage, I'm going to access the key from local storage by saying, so this is going to be cost. So I'm going to say cost token, going to be equal to, so right here, I'm going to say local storage get item, and then I'll have to specify the value of the item in this case. So just as you see here, we have a method that gets an item. So we specify the key that's going to give us this token. So right now we're accessing our key from our token from the local storage. So I've copied the key, which is React token auth key. So I'm going to copy this, I'm going to cut it and then place it right here. So let's try to see our key. So right now, what I need is to access this token and pass it within our authorization header. So I need to go ahead and do just that. So for now, let me just console log it so that you can be able to see it within our console. So I'm going to console log our token. So when I save, I'm going to head over to our Chrome. When I head over to our Chrome, I'm going to go within our console and then I'm going to try to refresh. So right in here, we see, let's try to see what's up. Nothing is logged. So let's try to actually submit our form. So when I try to submit our form with a title and a simple description and save, we now see that we've been able to access our token. So what we're going to do in this case is to get this token and be able to pass it within our fetch function in our authorization header. So I'm going to go ahead and do that by, I'm going to come right here. So I'm going to first create an object that's going to have our request options. Within our request options, I'll specify the headers, the body, and the method we're going to send this request with. So I'll come right here and create that request options object. So I'll say once request options, just like I did for the various routes. So I'm going to come and say it's going to be an object, sorry for that. And then this object is going to have the first party as a method. So in this case, the method is going to be post. The next thing I'm going to put in here is going to be the header. So let me actually make this, sorry for this. So this is going to be headers. And then our headers, we shall have an object. So we want this to be sent as JSON. So we shall specify the content type. Sorry for this. So this is going to be our content type. So our content type in this case is going to be application stroke JSON. After doing this, the next thing I'm going to also specify is the body that we're going to send with this request. So what I'll do is to come, actually one thing I forgot is to put in our authorization header. So our authorization header is going to have our value of the token. Just going to come right here. What I'll do is to say authorization. This is going to be the authorization header. Then within here, what I'll have to specify is bearer in the token we are going to access from our local storage. So to do this, I'm going to use JavaScript is template string. So I'm just going to use this syntax. And then what I'll do is to use the dollar sign, then that. So right in here, I can specify our token. So what I'm going to do is to add the bearer word. And since we have this, now we have our authorization header being bearer, then the token from local storage. After doing this, I'll specify uh, the body of the request. So this is going to be our data that we get from our recipes. So within here, within our data, we're going to access this data, this object we created as a result of submitting our form. So what I'm going to come and do is to say method. I mean, this is going to be our body in this case. Sorry for that. So this body is going to have an object. So this object, we do not need to send it as a JavaScript object. What we need is to send this body as JSON. So to do that, we need to come and say JSON, but this is going to be stringify, and then what we shall do is to pass in the. So just after doing this, I'm just simply going to come right in here, and what I'll do is to actually make a fetch request with request options to our endpoint that creates a recipe. So let's try this. So I'm going to head over to our backend documentation, and right here we have our route being recipe/recipes. I'm going to head over to our code right here, and what I'll do is to say fetch. And then right here we shall say recipe/recipes. So I'll pass in the request options as well. So I'll come right in here and say .then, and I'll access the response as JSON. So I'm going to say response.json, then access the data, as well as access any errors if we have. So I'll say .then. Actually, I'll call this .catch. So what we need is error. So I'll say .catch error, and then I'll simply console log any error that we shall have. So just come and say console.log any error. So hoping that everything is fine, what I'm going to actually do is to come back to our client and try to submit data to our API. So I'm going to come within our React app by refresh. I'm going to submit a title. So if I say title, then I say description. So I'm going to save. Right now we see that unprocessable entity, and this is invalid crypto padding. So let's go ahead and fix this. So I'm going to go back to our we need to go back to our code, and within our code, what I'm going to do is to actually trying to pass this using the JSON using JSON. So instead of saying the token, I'm going to access the token saying JSON dot. So in this case, I'm going to say pass, then access the token. Let's see. I save this and head over to our client. Now, in this case, when I try to submit this, we now see that a request to our server has been made. So let's try to go and see. So right now we see that our recipe has been created with the title and the description. So let's try to do that again. So if I say title to description and save, so right now we see that our title and description have been created. So our recipe with these attributes has been created in our API. So let's go ahead and try to see if our app is going to render this on our front end. So we need to come right here to our home, and here we see that our recipes have been created.